Welcome back to another episode of What the Heck Next. Today I have a really cool guest. His name is Gustavo Pena. He has been in my life since 2015 when we met on the set of a movie called Before You Go. He was an assistant director back then. He has vast experience from being in SAG and in the IA, which is the labor union, and also now as a DGA, Directors Guild of America, First AD. He comes from Queens, New York, and he has worked in the publishing business, the .com business, and also in the music business. Can't wait for you to get to meet Gus because he has evolved into so many things. Because you know what? Life has a way of changing our plans, the ones we never planned to change. Let's go meet Gus. Welcome back to another really fabulous episode of What the Heck Next. I am your host, Carrie Morrow, and today I invited one of the most special people in my life. We met in 2015 on a show where he was an assistant director, and our friendship really evolved from there because from that point forward, I couldn't work without him. I took him with me to the Husbands of Hollywood and on to several other shows. And we have a history of a great friendship and a great workship. And right now, he is a first assistant director. He has worked his way all the way from Queens, New York. Why is that important? Because I was born there. And that is the first thing we had in common. I'm excited to have Gustavo Pena, my fabulous Latin friend and first assistant director. Welcome to my
Thank you.
podcast. Could be nicer, and say all the fabulous things. He's my guardian angel. I don't know. He always picks me up from the depths of despair. God, help me. And
Yeah, I started in New York. It took me forever to do college, so I just took whatever job was available. I was sort of preparing for the freelance life already, just because I was trying to work and do school and financial aid. There, from New York, I was working in publishing, and then I moved to California and worked at a music.com, because I was also kind of dabbling. I had music industry jobs. But actually, my first entertainment industry job, I worked at a special effects house in Brooklyn, New York, as one of my jobs for a couple of semesters. There was a clean room, and I was in the clean room, and I was in charge of making the matches and flame things for Phantom of the Opera and Rent. That was one of our clients. Our saying there was, "We know it's right because we built it twice." The first time they tested out, the back of the blocks blew out. And they're like, "Well, we know it's right because we built it twice." After the music.com, I published magazines, kind of went back into my publishing thing, and it was music and stuff. I played a lot of basketball, so I would go to gyms and play. And I was like, well, if I could do what one of these guys does and make a living, I could, I was like, well, what do you guys do? Some of them were just straight gangsters. Some of them one guy drove the school bus. And then one guy who I became friendly with, because we'd always wind up on the same team, he said that he was an extra. And I said, what's that? He said, those people when you watch TV and you walk around, and really I didn't, because I'd never noticed them, and that's the idea. But then I started looking, I was like, oh, he's one of those guys. And he started telling me about like different movies he was in, like and Coach Carter. I sent him the text, what is that place? And he said, Central Casting. And I went, I paid my 10 or 20 bucks, whatever it was at that time, and then just started from there. But because I don't book exactly like I look on paper, like 6 foot tall Latino, shaved head with tattoos. That's me on paper. But when I show up, they're like, yeah, we wanted your cousin from East LA. Do you know him? Can he come? Disney shows, if they needed a tattooed person, they'd love me. And network shows, I'd be on like Gary Unmarried at the shooting range because they had to have that kind of element. What would happen is they would just pull me out and I just have to stand aside. And if you're quiet enough, you get to watch. And if you pay attention enough, then all of a sudden they need a stand-in. And then all of a sudden I just learned everything backwards. Like, we need to bring this, and I don't know what that is that they're bringing, but whatever comes, that's it. That's the light. That's the thing. So I just started to learn it all, and then slowly became an extras coordinator. I didn't like being late. So I'd always show up super, like so early that they would say, look for this, the yellow sign, look for this sign. And I'd be driving, like, they said this sign, there's no sign here. What is this? And I'd go around the block, and then the guy would be putting up the sign. Like,
Right.
that's how early I'd go. That turned into check in the background. I was doing a commercial, and I was doing like the paperwork, and I was helping the guy out. And I said to the second AD, what do you do? Like, what's your job? And he said, I do what you do when you're not here. And I was like, what? Like, it was like a needle, the needle skipped across the record at that point. And so from that moment on, I was like, well, they should just start people. I just let people hire me as an AD. Call me whatever you want, but call me that. And so I just started learning that. And I would do extras coordinator on like a multicam. I would set background, and I would do all sorts of stuff probably that I wasn't supposed to, but I was good at it, and they liked it, and they liked me, and I would wrangle the background and do all that. So that was a cool, quick, immerse class of like watching them do their thing. And so I learned a lot of the poise and a lot of that aspect of ADing from them. I learned how to wrangle 200 background myself and do all that, and then slowly just kept adding to my days and days, going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to go into the DGA. I was SAG and AFTRA forever. I joined the Coordinators Union 871, and so I was just making my way through the industry. But it seems like the AD part was the part I liked the most. I have great opportunities. I've had great experiences. I've had a lot of fun, and still do. Little less these days because it's not as trickling, as full force as it was. But so
one thing about you is that whatever the situation is, you've always made yourself to the top of that position. So if you were a background, you then became a stand-in. If you were a stand-in, you then became SAG. If you were a coordinator, you worked your way. You've managed to never settle. Like I always say, you're just, Gus says yes to the check. I mean, that
is true.
This guy
That is,
never says no to the check. And there are people that do say no to the check. There are people that'll go, yeah, don't do that. I'm not going to do that this time either. And you say yes to the check. It's really made you so multi-dimensional. I mean, you're like a chameleon. You're like, I'm doing this now, and I'm doing this. And you went from non-union to union, and then from non-DGA to DGA. And you've just keep rising up. Now's a little harder because I'm not quite sure if the water is catching up as we keep rising. Regardless of how many times you did it, your experience with Randall Emmett and all those Travolta movies, he's flying in for 12 hours.
I mean, it's a different animal that you don't really learn. You have to just kind of know how to deal with personalities. And that came from music industry. That came from even the .com. The job of the AD is not terribly hard. It's safety, organize what they want to shoot. It's math. Here's how much you got to do. Here's how much time you have to do it. Apply. That's it. The hard stuff is like the nuances of a set. You know what I'm saying? The sort of respect you give to the Travoltas of the world. Like, I'm not going to bring him first. Let's call everybody else, and then he shows up. Why? Courtesy. Once a PA asked me what the hardest part of my job was. And I looked there and I said, you probably think I'm going to say like the scheduling and how are we going to shoot this. And she kind of like was kind of expecting that answer. I said, it's not. That's math. That's not the hardest part of my job. The hardest part of my job that I spend most of my time doing is getting people to get out of their own way. You got a limited amount of time. And I don't mean in terms of budget. I mean, literally, you got a limited amount of time. When the sun goes down, it's over. We're done. That's it. There's no more light. There's not a light on the truck that'll match that. So you can spend this time
when the sun comes up.
I've been in that situation too, where it's like, I've been in the situation where I set up the last shot was the first shot and we shot sunrise for sunset. I think it's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It says that at some point, a good manager has to be, just because you're making good time doesn't mean you're going in the right direction. So you have to go up in the tree and, yep, well, that's the right direction. And so sometimes I have to remind directors, this is a second of your movie. You're eating time on something that's more important. You're obsessing. If you want to do it, I'm in. Let's do it. And then sometimes they look at me and I've done that, once. He said, whoa, back up. We want this. Let's say that line again. And I knew we had no time. I just leaned into him and I said, hey, you're going to be in the edit, you're going to be on a tighter lens. And I know your shot list is you're changing the lens. I said, I'll give this to you again, but we're going to switch a lens in a second. And he looked at me. I didn't know what was going to happen. And then he said, all right, let's change the lens. And he went into, because we didn't have time. And that's the management of it. They don't like it and they get mad at you, but I'm going to get you all the pieces. It's better to have something than nothing. And that's
Right, and a
been,
director can be like a mad scientist, and all of a sudden, we've talked about this, how they start adding stuff in. Like, we have to stick. Like, this is a real science to viewers out there that don't understand. We go into production with such a solid, airtight plan. And then there's
yeah,
the actor that's sick or didn't show up, and the director has to have this shot that he just thought of. And
yeah.
but our day is planned out to the minute what your morning looks like. You get to lunch and you know what your afternoon looks like. And then they go, I want to change something. And you're
Mm-hmm.
going, we can't. Like, and by the way, we don't have anywhere else to put it either. So you can dump it or you can shoot it and not shoot something else. You're the general of that army when you go to camera.
Just get me the camera. You're right. And my plan, the AD's plan isn't always the best plan. It just is a plan. And the idea is to have a plan. And so sometimes I've had, John one time asked me, can we do this scene first? But the day had already started. So I was like, this scene, and then my inner dialogue was, you mean the scene that I had planned to do after lunch, and it's the first time we're going to see Kristen Davis, and we haven't seen her at all, and she hasn't been to makeup or hair or anything, and I'd have to wake her up right now to call her in and do that, but I'm setting up for a stunt scene right now, and so you want to do that one first. And
So how
so,
do you
and that's
answer? So how do
absolutely.
you
I said absolutely. Let me just. I said, but you have to understand. I have to bring her in. She's not it. We don't have her till this. I set it up. So I set his expectations and say I'm going to give you it, but here's what I need. And so because I had that time to bring her in, I said, why don't we do this portion of this scene? He wanted to go through that before he went into the lobby thing, and I agree. This was the first time we're going to see those two on camera together, and it's a love interest. So I got it. And again, it wasn't that, oh, he changed my plan. He had a better plan and I was more than willing to listen to it. The only way you get there though, to me, is by having a airtight plan. Like I have a good plan. This is going to work. And then I know all the pieces, so then I can shuffle them around, because you have to, it's inevitable, but you have to have a plan. And so you got to have a plan to get out. So I get to learn all this stuff. I don't know, when someone asked me, how do you know this? I said, I have no idea. But over the years of doing it, I just picked it up. I was lucky enough to work with Stallone once on a Randall movie. He was just, holding court, said the night before we had a poll plan. I met with the DP and the director, and I was like, listen, Stallone is not an actor. Stallone is a filmmaker who's acting in your movie. So it's a mistake to think that he's going to do the blocking that we come up with. He's probably has better ideas. Let's go with that. And so I was like, but here's the order of what we have to cover, and here are the pieces we need. How you want to tell the story is up to you, but this is what you need. And so we had all that. And then the next day we're there and we're waiting. And then Stallone's, of course, he's interested and everybody's hovering. And the cool thing about having one person like that on your set is that nobody can match that ego. Like there's no other actor, there's nobody there that can match that ego. So nobody even tries. So
right.
it was the easiest day I had the whole movie. On the day we had Stallone, the rule of thumb was, if Stallone's not in the frame, we're not shooting it, because we got 16 pages to do and one day. And then I said, I think I need more than the 12 hours. And I said, what are you going to do? And the producer says, when the time comes, I'm just going to beg Stallone. And I was like, that's an awful plan. So I had to do everything within the 12 hours.
You worked on these movies with a producer named Randall Emmett, whose formula is pretty controversial compared to how normal Hollywood works. He gets sizable budget, but he only
Yeah.
uses a sizable portion of that sizable amount of money, 20 pounds of this and putting it into a 2-pound
Mm-hmm.
bag. And Randall did that every day. And
I
so
mean,
you were not given the luxury of, like, when I did Wedding Planner, Jennifer Lopez shot 2 pages a day. Like, you didn't have that luxury ever.
I don't even know what that feels like. I mean,
Right.
I'd love to do a movie that was like that. I don't.
Like, that became, like, your specialty. You talk to the
Yeah.
average first AD, they're like, "Yeah, 4 to 6 pages at
I
most."
mean, the Stallone one is just a lot of strips, but the action is pretty contained. It's just it intercuts with other things, so you can kind of figure it out. It's just the logistics of doing all those kind of movies is kind of rough, and you either have it ready or you don't. I just remind them that the meat and potatoes is what you need to get. When we work on another movie, they're like, he's right. I got to have something in the editing bay that I could fix, that I could do whatever. But if to have nothing that's catastrophic. I just promised them all the strips and I say, let's get you something. This is a situation where done is better than perfect. Once on one of these small movies, like, I don't want it to look like a B movie. I said, then stop making B movies. What about a 10-day schedule that says A
Better.
movie?
You've told me
Like,
about that. You know?
like what, like I get it that you don't want it, but no, it's 10 days. What do you think? Oh, A-list. This is absolutely,
Right.
stop
Right.
it. That's the navigation. Shooting, I think for me, I think making movies isn't hard. I think making movies is pretty easy. Like, the guy didn't show up like, well, let's see with the camera. Let's see the owner's manual. They know how to use the camera. They know how to light. The actors remember the lines. They don't know how to do the makeup. They know how to do all the stuff. The hardest part is changing your expectation. And that's the hardest part of Hollywood. And that's happening quicker and quicker and quicker in Hollywood now. Like, we have to
Right.
change our expectation for everything.
Talk about things you've gotten into, actors who don't wanna do something, and they're calling
Yeah.
their agent, and they're like, and you're like,
I,
"Call
you know,
it," you know,
I,
it's
I
you're just
feel
the babysitter.
I'm the baby. I often joke that I make my job is to make play dates for millionaires. Like, come together, bring all your friends. You're dressed like this. Today we're having this. Today's explosion day. Yay. Like, it's that kind of stuff. But, some of it, once I had an actor that didn't understand his contract and didn't understand that I think his scene, we moved the scene or something. So he was in, that his 1 day contract covers him for 3 days. He didn't understand that. He wanted to wait. I called for him. My first team PA was like, he's not ready. So I had to call the second AD, and Anthony, what's going on? And he said, and he called me and he said he won't get dressed and he won't come out of his trailer. He said that he needs to talk to his manager about the contract. And but we're in Kentucky, and his manager's in LA. And it's the morning. I'm not waiting till noon in LA for this guy. I went to the director, I go, hey, why don't you just block this with 3 people instead of 4, and see how you like it. Let's not do nothing with the time. Let's see what happens. Maybe you like it. And he did it, and he made an adjustment. He's like, I really like it this way, but you're gonna have to tell the other actor. I'm like, yeah, right. That's gonna be real hard for me. We just said, look, I'm sorry. That's the way we're. And he found, oh no, I was sorry, I was wrong. Like, right, too late. So a lot of times I'll tell my PAs and my ADs, like, we get the benefit of telling the story later. We get to tell this story later, whether it's your career, whether it's 1 day, 1 date, whatever it's going to be. But right now, we get to write it. So what part do you want to talk about? You could talk about, I said I'm going to talk to my manager until he understands my contract, and I'm not coming out of my trailer. That's the story you want. You went all the way out there, and you're in a movie with this actor, bigger actor, a director that's done some stuff, and that's the story you're telling. You want to come back, and that was your story. Or do you want to be like, I'm in that movie. That's me. So I'm always just thinking, like, what's the story? Maybe I like this. You got to find a different way to tell that story.
There
Sometimes I can't get people to get out of their own way. They always want, that's the hard part. Again, getting people to get out of their own way. That's the biggest thing. And, productions too. Sometimes they want to get in their own way too.
And they also make plans without you there, you know?
That
You
happened
know,
once. That happened
you know,
once where
you're going,
we were
"Where
having a
did this
scheduling
plan
meeting.
come from?"
We
Right?
were having a scheduling meeting, and then they started talking about this scene, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what scene is that? And they're like, oh, you weren't on the scout. And they're like, oh, we made it up. I'm like, how do I schedule something that you made up when I wasn't there? Like, do you understand? That's not, like, I'm good, but I can't read your mind. I'm not a Jedi.
That's production. There's all these cooks behind the scene, and you're just going, just do me a favor, don't have these meetings without me there. Because ultimately it always has to wash down to me. And now you've made up a whole play date that I know nothing about. You have to ask me, oh, we spoke to him. Well, him doesn't matter. I
Right,
matter.
right. I mean, I've had that. I had once. I on them with Gina Gershon. She was upset. I could see that she's upset. I said, Gina, what's the problem? And she's, well, everyone's telling me different scenes. Who's everyone? I'm the first AD. What do you want to know? She's like, what scene are we doing? I said, scene 43. You're in the wrong outfit. She goes, okay, I'll change. I go, there you go. Come back and we'll shoot that. I don't know why that happened, but and everybody wants to say, and that's why I'm like, let's just follow a little bit of chain of command. Let's not get that loose with certain things that we don't need to be loose on. I went to do a horse movie in New Mexico one time, and the horse people, you know what they said to me? They said, we always bet on who the first person to get thrown from the horse is. And you know who it usually is? It's the person who says they could ride. So yeah, oh, I could swim, I could do that until you can't. And then what? Well, he said he could swim. Like, so, I have to try to be the most responsible person on the set. Like somebody has to be.
When you're in the right kind of productions where SAG has rules in place,
Right.
sex rules and stunt rules and lifeguard rules, they have those rules.
When I was getting my days and trying to get into the DJ and getting those movies, I had a very simple rule, is that it didn't have to be all the unions, but it couldn't be none. So I had to be at least SAG, or had to be IATSE, something, so that there's somebody needs to have some oversight somewhere, not just worker, not just the labor board, none of that. I need a union, a guild, somebody to have some level of oversight so that it's not just wild, wild west. And there's been times when I've passed on movies that I'm like, you want to go where? To the desert and shoot completely non-union? There needs to be oversight. And even when there is oversight, there's not enough oversight.
Right.
I think. But
Right. So tell me about productions now that have no oversight, because you hear about them and you've been called. It's very foreign to me.
Last year I worked on some of the vertical shoots, and they're just, it's kind of odd. Like they're everything about them is just different. Like the orientation is vertical, so that's the aspect ratio that you're.
What is the point of these productions? They're not for U.S. market, are they? Where they go?
And that's it. Is there for all sorts of markets, and they're just going to dub all of them.
No regulations. I mean, where there's no governing.
It's not even.
We used to be called the Wild West because of what we did, and what we did was civilized compared to what they're doing now. Okay, they leave the country. There's no union.
Now they're leaving California because there's too many rules, and then Atlanta became.
It's too expensive.
It's way too
rules
expensive.
come with money. Yeah. You want to, because when there are rules, you also need more time. Okay,
right.
Rules of how long you can work and how
right.
what you can get away with.
Yeah,
and that costs money. And so when you leave and when you go to a place like Mexico City or Bulgaria, Romania, Hungary, those rules are different. They have a whole different structure. And that was the whole point of, like you said, coming west. That's what Hollywood is for. Like, let's go, past Vegas and go do things that nobody's ever done. And now they're doing that somewhere in another country without us. They used to take us. We would go. I would take my 40 friends and off we go. No more.
Someone told me that Los Angeles isn't even on the top 10 list of places to make movies.
It's not
even in the top 10. I don't know what's worse, is that I'm not surprised, or that's the true. Whether it's true or not, it still feels like, that's probably right. When you start thinking of all the, all the different places.
Right. Someone was telling me, well, 30 applications just got approved for the incentive. Okay. Guess what? Mine was one of them. I was on a movie last year. I told you, we got the film incentive. And after all that, $2.5 million of getting that money back, the studio said, still not enough money to work in this city or this country for that matter. And they gave them
the city, forget it. Your money goes, especially if you don't have a lot of it, goes a lot further in other states. I've seen it. It's sad, but it's true. My job is also to give the director what he wants. And I can see that he gets more of what he wants when we shoot in Mississippi or New Mexico. More bang for your buck, because you could get a lot more extras. You could get a lot more of everything, so it's not perfect. But if you're thinking about bottom line,
we've become like Bedouins. We're just pack up our things. We'll go anywhere, except that's becoming obsolete too, because unless you have the address and then you don't qualify for the incentive, and there's all these caveats about what you can do, and it's shocking. We have this conversation on a regular basis about
Hmm.
what like what do you think? Like what do you think? That's what the phone calls I get. What do you think? And we're like, it's a really weird time. I don't think it's a weird time. I've talked about this. I think it's what it is. I don't think it will ever be what it was. And
Yeah,
it
I mean, I think it's
definitely,
changed. It does feel weird, but this not for long because it's going to be a new thing. It's never going. We're just like we're never going back to vaudeville. That's never going to happen again. We're done with that. Whatever we saw, we're done with that. That's
and the
over.
whole AI conversation. I can't comment on what it's going to look like an entirely, but I tell you, there's a generation out there that will not know or care about the difference. That's all they will know. We're in
Yeah,
a strange time where what we see is not what we get, and what we knew is not what there is.
at the .com because there was music, and I had a boss. Back then it was flip phones, right? And he
Right.
even said, he goes, "Oh, what am I going to flip open my phone and listen?" If you had a ear thing, it was just one. It wasn't a double thing. So of course that wasn't going to work, but that wasn't going to be the final. It wasn't going to end there, you know. And that
Right.
it's just going to
Well,
keep going. Same thing here. They're not, they're already selling televisions that are this, vertical
really,
because that
that's interesting.
because that's how
That's
people
interesting.
watch TV. That's how people watch lots of stuff.
Listen, I say to my kids, when I was a kid, the phone hung on the kitchen wall. That was the only phone. There wasn't even an answering service. So if somebody called you and they go, I called you, and you'd go, I wasn't home. There wasn't like, well, I left you a message. That wasn't an option. It was just the phone was on the kitchen wall. And now it's it's in the hands of a toddler. You go to a restaurant, every toddler got a phone in their
I
hands.
used to say that our social media back then was as long as the cord was.
That's right.
So if you had a long cord, I could hide, and then my social media was really good. If I had a short cord, which often I'd get in trouble, and they'd put the short cord, so I'd have to be right at
right,
pretty much
right,
there. There's
right.
no social, nothing. That
That's
was
right.
your,
You got to
so
stand at the kitchen wall. I mean, when I
yeah,
was two, when I was good, my mother had a long cord and I could reach the bathroom
yep,
and close the door. I
exactly.
don't know what's going to happen to this business. I'm really sad about it for so many people. I mean, like I said, at this point from where I sit, and now that I've started this podcast journey and I'm talking to so many people, it's very strange to me because at first I thought, oh, we're losing our careers, but now it's turned into, and we've talked about this, losing our paycheck and losing our
Yeah,
income. And I'm not even going to have the benefit conversation that as grown-ups who were successful in a freelance world where we never knew where our next dollar was coming from. Forget about our next job, our next dollar. Wow, we start to evaluate how long has it been since we got a paycheck, and how, like, we forecast. You're the one that taught me, don't catastrophize, don't think about how bad it could be, but you sit here and you just say, how much money do I have left? How long is that going to last me? And what am I going to do? And this isn't practical for the long run. And at this point, I have friends that have moved away and lost their homes, and some lost their marriages, and some have lost their minds. It didn't matter what we made once. It matters what we made now. And we sit here and we try to predict as to what's going to be. I like to say, if my phone still ain't ringing, I assume it still ain't you. Life has a way of changing our plans, the ones we never planned to change. And we didn't plan to change these. We all said, I will
no,
decide when it's over. Like you've always said to me, oh, at some point, maybe I'll move to Belize. But you
yeah,
wanted to decide that. You.
right. I wanted to decide when, and I'm not saying I'm ready to go, but it used to be like Tarzan swinging from one vine, one job to the next, to the next. There's the next one. There'll be a break. It's coming right after this one, and that's just what happens, you know. Of it.
Are you near people that are looking for work, like just as scared? Or, I mean, you're not scared.
I
I'm
mean, I
scared.
don't. Yeah, I don't really have that. I don't really have those conversations with people because I just think like if this is what we're doing. If we're doing it, let's do it. If not, then we got to get on with something else. Like I don't want to. I don't know what that looks like. But I have two cats. I don't have kids. I'm not married. I don't have,
Right.
so my
Right.
responsibilities are not, but I think that, people are like, oh, I have to get a side gig. I'm like, right, but I don't want a side gig.
Right.
I think that if I get another gig, then that just should become my full gig. Because like we said, I'm not, it's not coming back. This is it. And that,
Let's
yeah,
pray.
I just wish it was more, again, I thought it'd be job after job because that's what it was
Well,
like.
I never thought it would fail me. That's
Mm,
my sadness. But I never
right.
thought it would dry up to the point where it doesn't even it's not even on my radar. As I watch you and you go, one moment you're going, it's coming and I've gotten calls and everything is good. And then all of a sudden you're going, but this isn't sustainable. This is the first time in the past month that I've heard you say those words. I've never heard
Well,
you
I
say
think
that.
that it's not sustainable right now. I mean, it's not sustainable because, like, with the strikes, we all thought, oh, the strike will finish and then everything will go back to normal, and this will finish and it'll get back to normal, and this is the normal. This is what it is. It just changed into this. Like, that's just now what happens. This time, there's no go back.
And over the lifetime of my career, which is long, I've watched the rates go up and up and up. And though I sit here and think, I remember paying people 22, $16 for grip and electric and 22, now but 48, $58. The cost of living, I can't factor in, but the cost of making movies is
I heard that Fox has a vertical platform. Aside from the cameras and stuff, I see people that normally wouldn't be working verticals, but now they are, and that's what they're
right.
doing.
Well, listen, you
And
got to go to
that's
the
sort of the
available meal.
right. I mean, if that's what's the checks is coming, but that's what I say is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. 1099 jobs, they don't pay a
Pivot
lot.
isn't.
My AD friends get 2 days for prep, including breakdown and scouts and meetings and all sorts of stuff, and 8 days of shooting. And it's 1099 job, and you get no PAs. I have a friend who does it, and he does the first and the second.
No
Why?
benefit. If you've made too much 1099 income at the end of the year, how much
Mhm.
taxes you owe? Okay, that's
Right.
the other
So I don't. So
downside of
that
that.
becomes a thing too. I mean,
Or
it's a problem all around. It's not sustainable for the industry. It's not sustainable for individuals. The more any kind of studios or bigger productions want to get involved, automatically it's going to change. Simple things like just little things that SAG would require, that the makeup and hair unions will require. Not one person. It's got to be two different bodies. To okay, like that becomes now that changes a whole other thing. So automatically, once studios or any kind of productions get involved or any unions get involved, I think that I don't know how it'll change because they want to be able to get away with what they want to get away with. I know that because I see the
right.
shots.
Well, I don't know anymore. Yeah. I just keep hoping and I keep talking
Mm-hmm.
and I keep believing it feels good to have a place to talk about it
Yeah,
because
I think that's
people
important.
call me constantly. What do you think? What is this? And I'm just creating a space where people can talk.
It's important to talk about it because for some people, because like you've mentioned it to me before, like we're freelance, we don't know when the job's done. For some people, they need to have that conversation and be like, wait, there's no more jobs? Well, then we're done. I should go, I'm going to retire. I'm going to do this. I think people need that sort of, it's time now.
I was thinking about it on my walk this morning and I thought, and I haven't had a romantic relationship forever, but in my mind, I think this is what it feels like when they don't call back. They're gonna
Mm.
want me. They're gonna call me back.
Yeah,
I'm sure of it. It's not over.
right. There's a Friends episode where, where Chandler got in trouble because he said to some girl, well, that was great. I'll call you sometime. And like, why would you say that? And he's like, that's just what you say. And then, Rachel said, so do you guys just all say this? And they're like, yeah, like, doesn't anyone ever said that to you? And they're like, she's like, yeah, but they've always called back. So it's the same idea here. It's like, at the job's always called. I don't know it. What
That's
do you
right.
mean? We
I'm
always had
telling you.
jobs.
But I'm telling you, like, my fantasy was, how am I ever gonna slow down? Yeah, do one movie this year. We're not conventional where we're gonna retire at 65. It's so easy because we work, 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 and then we stop and we get a rest and we can go back and
Right.
do it again. And
Once you've already done other things in different ways, and it's not possible. It's not possible for people are going to adjust. So what's going to happen in Atlanta is there won't be the workforce. What's going to happen in LA is there isn't the first workforce. Like they're going to adjust because all those people are doing something else now.
I also think it's like stages of a rocket. I mean, this is really to me like the purge. Hollywood is like purging
Yeah.
about 80% of its workforce. It's purging. Because I hear there's movies and I'm like, oh, okay, there's TV shows, but they're purging the
I
bulk.
mean, I hear about the movies because I talk to my friends, the union ones and the non-union ones, and they're not the same.
No,
It's just not the same.
not anymore. Okay, well, thank you for coming.
Of
I
course.
feel great now. I feel so good.
I have my therapy scheduled right after this, so it works out perfectly.
Well, you are my therapist, so there you go.
Well,
I adore you and thank you,
thank you.
and we'll do this
This is
again.
fun. Yeah.
It's kind of fun to just to put up, I mean, the vast expertise that you have in so many places on the shows like Parks and Rec and all the way down to, The Real Husbands of Hollywood and whatever we else did, games people play. We've been through it and we've
Yeah.
seen it and we know what it was and we'll figure out what it's going to be. So
Yeah.
thank you
I
for
mean,
coming. I want to
it
thank
turns
my
into
guest,
something. Thank
Gustavo
you.
Pena, my therapist, my guardian angel. He was
Thank
so
you.
fun to talk to you and we'll talk soon.
This is a fun
Thanks,
platform.
Dad.
It's great.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you to my dear friend Gustavo Pena, who has been in my life for the good and the bad. He's really interesting, and I look forward to having him back. Please like, follow, subscribe, and comment on my videos, YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple, and more. I look forward to seeing you again on another episode of What the Heck Next, because life has a way of changing our plans, those ones we never planned to change. Thanks for coming.